areas that India and Israel should, deepen their partnership in, apart from defense?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your program. It's rather what do you say, abstract key partnership. There's many things to talk about in this partnership. But yesterday, when the Prime Minister Modi gave his speech in the Knesset, it's quite interesting, really, because we're under a lot of stress here with a threat of Iranian ballistic missiles, but the whole of Israel was turned to the attention of your great Prime Minister. And the key partnership, the key for me listening to his speech was, since the massacre of October the 7th, it's only taken just over 2 years, and Israel has found herself quite isolated due to ambivalent statements by Western leaders, or cowardice, or actually turning the blame on Israel. And so for me, what was key, and for many Israelis, was your Prime Minister's moral leadership, his absolute moral clarity. He is one of the few leaders in the world today who could stand up with such conviction and with such intention and say, I condemn the massacre of October the 7th, and India stands with Israel. Now that is the basis for any future incredible developments that our two nations share together. So of course that will lead, when you have such courage from Prime Minister Modi, to risk actually diplomatic relationships if people were going to get angry. But if he shows such courage, Israel, we're ready to pour our hearts into this. And if you think of history and the old spice routes that came through India and up through Israel, the world is not really, I don't know if it's also Western centered, but the world is running through New Delhi and Jerusalem. And I think the implications of this strengthening of this incredible, it's not just an alliance, it's a deep friendship. The implication of this will have global fantastic results.
Absolutely, ma'am. And if I can also get your observation, since you're speaking about that speech at the Knesset, but when we're looking at this address, ma'am, a host of issues came to the fore, our cultural and historical relations as well. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi and your Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have shared this deeply personal bond as well, which has in fact nurtured this India-Israel relationship as well.
That's very, very true, and it was very moving actually to see Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi hugging each other. You can tell it's far more than just a very strong political alliance, but that's also testimony to India's history. I tell you something that, we've been fighting this war for over 2 years, and for many, many years, our soldiers, when they get out of the army, these young people, they just want to do a trip somewhere in the world. And India has always been an extremely favorite destination for many, many young Israelis. And that too has been completely strengthened after the massacre of October the 7th. And I'll tell you why, because for 2,000 years, India has been, without doubt, the safest destination and the safest place for the Jewish community to reside in the whole world. India protects its Jewish community. The Jewish community in India are a thriving minority. I know your government, invests financially to keep them safe, and the only danger that the Jewish community faces in India is that the Hindu community faces and the Christian community faces in India by these Muslim terrorists. So we have a deep shared history with India, and following, the isolation from these other cowardly countries and the courage of your own Prime Minister to reach out, really put his head on the line and says he unequivocally stands with Israel. That also means that, Israel, if we're looking today, where is Israel going to go for a vacation, these young people? India is remaining almost the only place on the map where Israelis actually feel safe. So what we see today is a continuation of the safety that the Jewish community have experienced in India for 2,000 years.
Absolutely, ma'am. And when we look at that address as well, like you've mentioned, that both the leaders condemned terror, all sorts of terror. And they want, both the nations also want to move towards a world where everyone lives together, where we are seeing a world currently which is geopolitically divided. We are seeing a lot of wars emerging. We are seeing a lot of statements from global leaders, but nobody coming to the fore and talking about terrorism, and that we have to in the end stop it. But I think from yesterday's speech, I think from the Israeli parliament, that was the resounding voice that in the end the world needs to fight against terrorism. And we had the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, also the first thing that he did on day 2 of his visit, ma'am, was that he went to Yad Vasem. He took part in that ceremonial memorial that was in fact held over there.
That's right, and it was a very, very, very moving to see this. I actually, I'm also a part-time guide throughout that museum, the national state of the commemoration of the Holocaust of the Jewish people. So it was incredibly powerful that your Prime Minister went there. And regarding the terrorism, it's unsurprising to us Israelis why Modi, Prime Minister Modi, is so strong about this, because we're not just sharing now a global or a developing relationships for cyber security or defense or agriculture. We have a shared, not just Jewish history, Indian history, but India, like Israel, we both know what Islamic terrorism does. And India has been subject to the most violent and vile terrorist attack by Muslims, extremist Muslims. And so it's something also deep within the Indian psyche. You've been fighting this for years, just like Israel has. And it's so easy for people to just preach right out of not experience. But when you've lived through terrorism, like the Indian people have and continue to do, and like we do as Israelis, you know that you can't make peace with people who want you dead. And the only way to make peace is to fight terrorism. And that's what India and Israel will also be doing together.
Absolutely, ma'am. Ma'am, if I can request you to please stay on with us, let me introduce some piece of information.